All right, folks, we're going to get started with session 2. Feel free to continue getting breakfast and food and all that good stuff. But if you want to come in and find your seat, that would be great. I'm excited about what we're going to do. I already said about the panel, but what I want to do for the first 20 minutes, I think is going to be crucial in that engagement piece and where you actually get face-to-face with your student. And it's something that I think we kind of think we know, but it's one of those things where I've found so often in my life, the things that I think I know or that I take for granted or that I use all the time, if I take 5 minutes, pull back and really look up the definition or think step by step through it, it becomes like brand new again to me. And I think that that's kind of what we're going to see over the next few minutes together. But I want to give you an opportunity to help me teach. And some of you do cost analysis kind of stuff at work. I don't want to bore you, but we're going to do a little bit of that this morning. And so I'm going to be looking for input from you. I want to talk about first, let's think in terms of connecting, having a viable relationship with your student, where there's open communication and honesty and authenticity and all of those kinds of things. In your minds, and you can just kind of, if you could throw a hand up, because I'm going to try and repeat them so we get this all down really well. In your minds, what would be some of the costs of not connecting and building that kind of relationship with your student? And by the way, there's no obvious answer. Whatever comes to your mind is good. Disconnect. Help me understand that more. Just in conversations? Right. It's easy to feel like we're running parallel with our kids, right? Versus there being these intersections along the way. Awesome. Yeah. Maybe not parallel. Others, what are the costs? Unhappy kids. Yes, and unhappy parents. That's important, though. I mean, because so often you think your kids don't want to have anything to do with you, but when they're not connected to you, they feel that. And they're not happy about it. They may not tell you they're not happy, but they aren't. Yeah. Future. Yeah, their future. Gotcha. Yeah, your present with your kids definitely has a play on what happens down the road. Yeah, Mary?
What kind of stuff is also
Yeah, they're going to go other places. And when they're going other places, those can be scary ones. Yeah.
Lose your ability to influence them or impact them.
Yeah, we lose our ability to influence them. I know this is small for a lot of you. I'll leave it up if you want to write them down later. Yes, sir. It costs your trust, right? By the way, raise your hand if you ever lost your parents' trust. Remember the talk? Trust is something you earn. It's going to take a while to earn back. Can I tell you something? It's the same from their end. If you lose their trust, it's something we have to earn back. It goes both ways. Absolutely. Others, what are the costs? Yeah. Disobedience with God. If you are a believer in the room, this one should bother you the most. Because that's what we're their parent for. Right? Others, what are some costs of not connecting, having that deep relationship with your student? Yeah. Yeah, you lose their time, and like you say, you never get that back, right? If you have a 6-year-old, they're only 6 for 1 year. They're never going to do that again. And if there's not that relationship now, you can't be retroactive and come back when they're 21 and say, hey, let's do your 6-year-old year again, now that we have a good relationship. And by the way, that 6-year-old year will influence their 22-year-old year, right? Other costs. Yeah. Future relationships. Are you speaking specifically about like a marital relationship or just in general?
Their future relationship with you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. On down the road, when they're a grown adult and you are still their parent, will you have a relationship? Absolutely. Accountability. Right? If Facebook's not holding them accountable and you aren't, nobody is. Yeah, Mark?
Future relationships, kids have long memories.
Yeah, that's true. Kids have long memories. They don't forget, right? I mean, I won't have you raise your hand, but it'd be interesting to see how many of you raised your hand if I asked you the question, how many of you have a bad relationship with your parents today because of who they were when you were a kid, right? I mean, they do. They have long memories. Were you going to say something? Yeah.
Your legacy, your grandchildren.
Huh. Yeah, your legacy. That's so. I'm glad you said that because there probably are some grandparents in the room. You know, our relationship with our kids will affect your relationship with your grandkids. It's scary to think how it's all connected, isn't it? Maybe one more? Cost? Yeah.
Their parents will later.
Who they become as parents. There is no question, and I was blessed with awesome parents, but there's no question that I'm a parent the way I am because of how they parented me. And we've all had those moments, whether good or bad, where something comes out of your mouth where you're like, oh my gosh, I sound just like my dad or my mom, right? It's scary. Just real quick, how many of you with your student, no matter how old they are, have been on the cost side with them? And how did that feel? Not good, right? I mean, that's the answer that everybody would give. No one wants to be over here. Now, the temptation with something like this is always like, okay, well, when we talk about the benefit is you connect. The benefit is you have happy kids and parents. Let's not cheat. Let's give, like, what are the real benefits of you having a connected, deep relationship with your student? Yeah. Integrity. That's one of those words that I had to relearn, right? Integrity is not just about, I got you. Integrity is not just about, I'm the same person when the door is closed as when the door is open. Integrity comes from the word integrate. And so when we're in people of integrity, every part of our life is integrated with other parts of our lives. There's no compartments. That's what integrity is all about. I love that. Yeah. Willingness to confide. That's so important and so easily lost, right? This is maybe the most fickle of them all. Others, benefits. Yes, sir. One more time. Communication, yes. And communication is about a lot of things other than, in addition to them talking. Yeah. Respect. Unconditional love. And that's important, not just so that they become people who unconditionally love, but so they understand your love. Yeah, Nicole?
To receive God's blessings or unwrap God's gifts.
Receive God's blessings. I had a professor at Trinity. One of his ongoing kind of paradigms was that people come to understand God according to their relationship oftentimes with their parents, specifically their father. So if their dad was aloof, they often will think that God is an aloof God that's kind of just removed and is there but not overly interested in what's happening in their life. If they had a very kind of rules, I'm going to enforce and punish when you break the rules kind of dad, they often have this like deep fear of getting God angry. I think that that's so true. Our relationship with our kids plays into their relationship with God. and their ability to receive his love, their ability to receive his definition of who they are. Other benefits. Yeah. Absolutely. Security. That's a high need that we all have, not just teenagers. We want to feel secure in our relationships and who we are. Yeah.
Instead of just being obedient out of fear, I kind of want my kids to just, be obedient out of love.
Yeah. Yeah. Obedience out of love. I love that. Right? The idea of, I don't want you to just avoid punishment. I want you to do it because you genuinely love God. I want you to follow things around here because you genuinely love us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They make better choices when you have a good relationship with them. How many of you have ever been on? Yeah, we'll do these three.
I was just going to say you picked some really fun times.
Yeah, fun. And some people are like, fun with my kid? It can happen. It does happen. Yeah.
A lot of good choices, but I was going to say the ability to evaluate.
Ability to evaluate. Yes. We have to understand that in a teenager and a young person's mind, evaluation is based on feeling. We have to train them how to evaluate with feelings involved. You never are going to totally remove those, but how to evaluate a little bit more objectively. Absolutely. And then last one.
I was just going to say a biblical worldview.
Yeah, biblical worldview. Absolutely. And that's one of those things that kind of becomes an umbrella over it all, right? So real quick, by a show of hands, how many of you spend a lot of time in the benefit side of your relationships with your kids? Good. And how does that feel? That's the sweet spot, right? That's the this is what I signed up for. That's what I was thinking about when I was holding that little baby in the hospital, was these things, not this. The unfortunate truth is, though, a lot of us spend a lot of time over here. And I'm convinced it's because we've disconnected from them. We're not engaging their culture. And so I want to spend just a few minutes talking about a thing that you'll probably recognize from, if you've done any kind of marriage course on communication, there's going to be some similar principles in this. But I think it's so crucial for us in relating to our students. I call it the bridge talk. What you're going to do is you're going to build a bridge between you and them. Because if we're over here, there's a big gap, right? They're in their teenage world, and we're in our adult world. Never the two shall meet. And so I want to just give you kind of a 3-step conversation that I think will at least create an environment where that bridge can be made. Okay, so step 1 is take initiative. You have to be the first person to make the move. They're not gonna, most of the time. What that first move can be is a whole lot of things. My favorite thing to say is go on a date with your kid. That's so important because, one, when you even make the offer, it shows them that, hey, I'm willing to take some time out of my calendar for you. You're just as important as my boss. You're just as important as my mountain biking night with my buddies. You're right up there with all of that. That speaks volumes. And then when you get away, you have this environment where it's you and them, and hopefully a conversation starting to happen. But you have to examine the issues in that initiative and invite dialogue. We circumvent the process right out of the gate so often. And if I sit down with my teenager, it's so often I want to make it about them. I want to fix them. I want to change the way they think. And what they start to feel, just like Rebecca was like, get away from me. Why are you attacking me? I thought you loved me, right? We have to make it about the issues and have dialogue around the issue. So if it's their music or it's their video games or it's their friends they're hanging out with or the dating relationship they're in, Don't make it about why are you such a screw up, or why do you make such bad choices, or why aren't you more like me? Let's talk about that movie. Let's sit down and watch it and talk about it. Let's talk about the issue and then create dialogue. Now, dialogue is a two-way street. They have to be able to talk. So often, as a youth pastor, I'll get with a student and I'll realize I spent an hour with them and they said 2 words because I got preaching. We have to be willing to zip it and listen, which kind of moves into the next part of the bridge, and that's exploration. You have to inquire about their concerns without judgment. Now, they're going to say some things. If you get to the place where this is happening, they're going to say some things that make you want to puke, that you totally disagree with, and you just want to quickly reach across and slap them for even saying it. But that will shut the bridge building down forever. You have to be willing to listen to their concerns and not judge them right away. Listen, understanding what is reality for them does not necessarily mean you agree with it. It means you understand it. That's the important difference. Nobody's saying you got to agree with everything your teenager says. What we're saying is you've got to understand what they're saying. You have to understand their world. Now, that's not going to happen, again, if we're talking a lot. So real quick side road, I want to talk about the art of listening, just some what I think would be good goals for you to have when you're in these times with your student. And again, no matter how old they are, this stuff applies to my relationship with my 4-year-old Logan. When I do this stuff with him and I fight a lot less. And Logan is a strong-willed, very, very vocal person about his feelings. And what I need to do is sit down, even at 4 years old, and have this conversation with him. Number 1, tips for listening. Invite the other person to go first. So let's say you're sitting down with them and you want to talk about, the party they went to over the weekend. Don't start with what you think about the party. Don't start with what you think about them going to the party. Let them start. Tell me about the party. Tell me what happened there. Let them go first. Number 2, don't talk. Let them get it all out. Let them just puke it all out onto the table before you start to clean it up. Okay? I know our natural tendency is there's a little bit of a mess, got to clean that up. Well, hopefully there's a lot of more mess to come. So let them get it all out and don't talk. There are 3 words you can say in a conversation like this. Are you ready? Number 1, okay. Number 2, mm-hmm. Number 3, huh. To show them that you're still there, you're still awake, you're still listening, but nothing else. Moving on. Make a dimension shift as you listen. What I mean by that is get into their shoes. Think as best as you can like them. That's how you'll understand them. So try not to come at it from your perspective all the time. Try and come at it from theirs. Next, make the other person feel safe. Now, how are you going to do that if you're not talking? Number 1, eye contact. Put your phone away. Turn it off. Throw it out the window. Do something so that you can maintain eye contact with them. And by the way, it's not this kind of eye contact. It's I'm looking at you because I'm listening to you. It's things like I'm going to square up my body. I mean, these are basic principles you've probably heard a million times, but they notice. They notice when they're sitting here talking to you and you're like this, or you're watching the TV over their head. They notice that stuff. You have to physically engage them. They say you say 10 times more with your physical actions than you do with your words. So make sure they understand this is a safe place where they're going to be received. Confirm a proper understanding. This feels very formulaic when you first start it, but it's simple and it helps when you repeat back to them what you think they just heard. This is where people tell you, be like, okay, what I hear you saying is, or what I think you're saying is. That's going to show them, it's going to give them an opportunity to say, no, that's not really it. There's two ways you can do that. Start with, you feel because of. You feel because of. You feel angry right now because Dad told you you couldn't go out this weekend. And they're going to do one of two things, or one of three things maybe. They're either going to go, I don't really feel angry because Dad wouldn't let me go out this weekend. I feel disappointed. And then you're going to say, you feel disappointed because Dad won't let you go out this weekend. And they're either going to go, I feel disappointed not so much because Dad won't let me go out, but because I'm going to miss an experience with my friends. And then you're going to go, so you feel disappointed because you're going to miss an experience with your friends. And eventually you will get to the place where they go, yeah, you get me, dude. And all you're doing is repeating back to them what they are saying. You're coming to find understanding by confirming that you do. Next, repeat key words. They're going to use, everybody does this, you can apply this to any relationship. Everybody uses like non-word words. What I mean by that is they're just emotionally charged things that don't help convey understanding. So when they say things like, Dad is such a jerk. Jerk? What do you mean by jerk? Well, he's always yelling at me without ever asking me what I think. Now you understand jerk. See? Those words that don't help you understand what they're saying, repeat them back. What do you mean by that? And watch what happens. One last thing, review and summarize. When you get done, go over the whole thing again. Yes, this takes time. This is not a 5-minute car ride. This is I'm taking you out to Starbucks, or I'm taking you out to Olive Garden, or where do you guys go? Jimmy John's? Something, right? I'm going to take you out. We're going to be intentional about this. We're going to review the whole conversation, okay? Back to the bridge. So once you're done exploring, you're going to seek cooperation. Give them what they need before asking for what you want. And this is not a give them whatever they want. Ask them for what they need. So Dad's a jerk because he always yells at you without asking what you think about something. What could Dad do differently so that that's not how you feel? And they're going to say, well, he could yell less, right? But you're going to be able to have a conversation with them about, okay, what do we need to do? How do I take ownership in this and help make it different? And while this may not be an easy or fun process when you're in it, but if you work on doing this with your teenager, you'll spend more time over here, I promise you. I promise you. I have a lot of people who come up to me and they'll say things like, how come my kid listens to you? How come their deeper leader or their small group leader can say anything? And it's like, yay, I'm going to do whatever they say. But when I say it, it's because our leaders, we beat this into them. And we as parents got to learn to do it as well. Create these environments where the bridge can be gapped. Now, or the gap can be bridged is the right way to say that. I want to introduce you to these friends. And you got to give them a warm welcome because they're here to help us understand just how deep and wide that gap is. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you. But why don't you guys come up and will you welcome these teenagers as friends? Now, what we did with registration is we asked you to submit some questions that you had. I want to make sure I warn you, we're not going to get to all of them. What I did was I looked through them and I tried to find the ones that sounded the same and the ones that I think we would all benefit from the most, and so we'll do our best to get to them. They have not prepared. I sent them all the questions, but they don't have notes or anything because I said to them, I want authenticity. I want what you really think. Don't write down what you think they want to hear. So, real quick so you know who they are, we'll start with Gracie on the end. Gracie, why don't you give us your name, the school you go to, and what year you are?
Hi, I'm Gracie. I go to Lakes Community High School, and I'm a junior.
I am Grant. I go to Warren, and I am a sophomore.
I'm Samuel. I am a sophomore and I go to Warren.
I'm Rebecca. I'm a junior and I go to Warren.
I'm Alexis, and I'm a junior at Lakes.
Now, poor Grant, his parents are here. Well, his mom's here. So he's going to be careful. No, right? Grant is totally honest, totally honest. I want you to know, I think the world of these kids. They are some of the finest high school students I've ever had the privilege of working with. They love the Lord with all their heart, and they have a variety of family situations. And they have managed to, in no matter what situation they're in, to continue to honor God. And in honoring Him, they're honoring their parents. And so I'm excited for you to get into their world. And how we're going to do this is I'm going to throw a question out, and I'm going to just let them jump in when they can. If they don't speak up, I'm going to call on them individually, not because I think they're the ones that struggle with the question, but because I know that they can handle being put on the spot like that, all right? So, first question. What causes most kids your age group to turn away from God?
I'd say that it's mostly what they're involved in at school, because what you're involved in at school directly correlates with who you're friends with. And I think if your friends aren't Christians necessarily, then it's more difficult for you to act like a Christian.
Yeah. Rebecca, what are some of the things that when you say involved in at school, can you just give like 2-3 examples of what those things might be?
Athletics, NHS, just things like that, I guess.
Yeah, where you're surrounded by people. Yeah.
Also, I think a lot of the times, like Josh talked about before, like kids want to have fun. And if they've been sort of like misinformed on maybe what like Christianity is, like if they see it as just like a set of rules and stuff that they can't do, when the stuff that like their parents say they can't do is stuff that they want to do, then a lot of the times kids are just going to do what they want to do, and they're going to, turn away so that they can go have fun and whatnot.
I think one of the biggest things is sort of the people that we're surrounded with. I think what you'll find is in just about every high school, if you don't have strong Christian friends, it's very difficult. And when you don't have them, it is easy to turn away. But when you do have strong Christian friends, like I think speaking for me and Sam, we have a very strong set of good friends, and we really, it's not necessarily easy, but it's a whole lot easier staying on the right track with the people, just having good Christian friends in our lives. So I think a lot of it is sort of the people that we're hanging around and the friends that we have. So.
I think that along with that is, what are your priorities in life? I know for me, when you're thinking about, okay, I have youth group tonight, or I could go to the gym and practice basketball because I have tryouts tomorrow morning. I think when you go and you have like extracurricular activities, there's priorities in life, and I think that sometimes what's relevant now is not what is going to be important later. But for high school students, like, it's hard to see past that. So seeing past not going to youth group to go and practice for your 3-month basketball season can really affect how you prioritize your life and where God is on that list, and like when you're like making that decision.
And all of you could answer this, but maybe what I want you to know about Sam is this is like the next Pete Sampras in tennis. The dude is legit when it comes to sports. How influenced by your parents are you when it comes to setting those priorities, when it's like school or plays or whatever the case may be? Do your parents factor into your decisions in that way?
I definitely think they do. My parents, as I've grown up, always wanted me to make my faith my own. So as much as like they say, like we go to church Sundays as a family, they want me to make that decision, because in 10 years, they're not going to be coming to my house saying, hey, are you coming to church? Or, hey, like, are you in a Bible study? Because that's a decision I'll have to make. So as much as they influence me to come to church and to make to go with them to what they do. They really want it to be a decision that I make, so they really do leave it up to me with some guidance and with some like encouragement. But they really want me to make that choice of what's more important. Is it my tennis season right now, or is it the Christian friends that I'll be, hanging out with 30 years from now? So.
Did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I have also found that all my friends that were generally kind of forced into Christianity when they were younger, they tend to want to sort of rebel against that when they're older, just because, I don't know, apparently teenagers are rebellious. This is what I've heard. So, yeah, a lot of my friends that were, like where their parents kind of made them go to youth group or something like that, they tend to not want to do that in high school. And then as they get older, especially from like sophomore to junior year, they tend to drop out of the youth group and things like that. So.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, Alexis. So I'll throw another question in. How can parents influence your age bracket to make those kinds of choices? In other words, I want church to be a priority. I want God to be a priority. How can they do that without making that happen, forcing you into it and making you want to rebel later? Any ideas?
I think what you were talking about earlier, just checking yourself in the mirror as a parent. If we see that your biggest priority is going to church on a Sunday morning and being involved with other Christians, that's going to be instilled in us, and we're going to say, you know what, I see that is a big priority, even without you necessarily saying, youth group comes before, basketball or whatever. If the parents are doing it first and showing what it looks like to place God as the number one priority, then it's going to be a whole lot easier for us to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, along with that, I think not holding your child's hand for their whole life, like when they're making decisions, is a really big part of it. I know, like for me, I make a lot of decisions on my own because my mom, especially, she wants to get involved when I'm making decisions, and she's there to support me. But a lot of times I end up making decisions by myself because my mom wants me to, I guess, get a taste of what I'm going to have to deal with when I'm older. And then always being there to, help me clean up the mess I've made at the end if I made a not so great decision by myself. But I always get to make my own decisions, and it's just, I feel that that's definitely helped me.
Also, another thing is it's really hard, when I think about when I'm going to raise my own kids, I try to think, okay, how am I going to make sure that they're strong Christians and all that? What you have to realize is that their relationship with God is not under your control completely. You have to realize that God is taking care of your kid, and sometimes just letting go and not pushing them into something so hard can result in them actually really taking their faith on as their own.
That's great. Next question. What would you guys like most from your parents?
I really like that Josh said, listen without judging. I wish my mom would do that more, because we just want to talk. We don't necessarily want advice. We don't necessarily want you to tell us what you think we should do. Sometimes we just, want to get our feelings out. And if I'm venting to my mom, she'll try and tell me what I should do with these problems. And no, don't. I'm just venting. It's not that big of a deal. If I really wanted advice, just necessarily for me, I know it's not everyone is like this, but I will directly ask my mom for advice. So yeah, I just don't force us to, yeah.
That's good.
Another thing is support. I'm really into music, and I have my parents, and then I have two step-parents, and none of them are musical at all. And so when, I get really excited about, I figured out how to do this cool thing on the guitar, and they're kind of like, yeah, that's great. I mean, they're kind of, they don't really get it, and I mean, I get that they're not all that, into that, but if you can find things that you and your kids can relate to, that's really important. And so I would be able to like sort of get along with my parents easier, and we could relate more if, they were more interested in the whole music thing, but, so find those things, that's definitely important.
And you're not necessarily asking them to be experts, right? Just to be engaged. Anybody else, or we'll move on to the next question. What's one thing, if you were maybe just one thing that you think your parents do really well that you wish every teenager had true in their parent? And not everybody has to answer, but maybe a couple of you could throw that out.
One thing I really appreciate about my parents is the openness they are with me, of how they would say, hey, when you make a mistake or you mess up, we don't want you to be scared to come to us in fear of, oh no, like I'm gonna lose my phone, or oh no, I'm not gonna be able to go to a party in the next 2 months, or like anything like that, but to come because you want help, and to come because you want to to flush this sin out of your life and confess and move on from it. So one thing that I really appreciated is how when I have messed up and when I have sinned, is the way my dad, or especially my dad, but both my parents have said, hey, like, don't look at me as some like inferior of like bad, like I can't believe you're doing this, like you're a horrible son, but as, hey, like I'm a sinner too, and I've messed up too, and I'm coming along you to help you because I don't want you to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. So one thing that's just helped me so much is how my dad has been able to come alongside me rather than to stand on a pedestal and kind of bark at me like, well, why are you doing that, blah, blah, blah. But hey, I'm sorry that this has happened, so let's move through it together.
I think one of the things I really appreciate is just knowing the reasoning behind the rules and principles in my house. Like when my parents go to do something, they verbalize, and it's very apparent that it's because that they love me and that they want God's best for me. And so I think that knowing just the intent behind a lot of the things that my parents are doing really helps a lot. Like when, you may not necessarily agree with what your parents are doing, but when they can show you that it is because they love you and it is because ultimately they want God's best in your life, I think that's something that I've really appreciated.
Yeah. How many of you guys, go ahead, Rebecca.
I was just going to say, laugh with us. Don't, it's not, if something is funny, laugh. Like it's not, I feel like my mom is sometimes afraid to laugh at some things because she thinks that I won't think it's funny or, something like that. But just don't be afraid to like laugh with us and have a good time.
That's cool. I know the answers to these questions, and they're obvious, but how many of you have a Facebook page? How many of you are on Twitter? Instagram? Anybody have a Tumblr?
I don't know how to work it, but I have it.
I spend the majority of my time on Tumblr. It's a problem.
Who has a blog? Now, this question's tough, and this is maybe going to be the one where you got to answer honest. What are your feelings about your parents monitoring or looking at what you are doing on those various social media outlets?
Oh, it's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. Okay, this is something that I feel very strongly about. I don't even know why, but I do. I think that the basis of every relationship, like parent to child, whoever else, I don't know. I feel that the basis of every single relationship is trust. And if you can't trust your child, then something's wrong. And I don't know whose fault that is, but something's bad. And I just feel that if you really have like an actual cause to check your child's Facebook account, like if they're like cyberbullying someone, then yeah, check it, or just make sure that they're not on it or something if there's a problem. But if you don't have a real reason to do it, then you shouldn't do it, because even though they're your child, like they still want to have privacy, and I think that they should be allowed to have privacy and checking like text messages and Facebook accounts and stuff like that. I don't know. I just think that it's just unnecessary. Like I said, like unless you have a real reason to do it, I don't think it should be done. Also going along like what I said before with like not holding your child's hand for the rest of their life, you should also trust that your child, that you've raised them in a way that they are able to think, should I say this to that person? Should I not say this to that person? And I think in the end, if you trust them to make their own decisions with that, then it'll be a good outcome because you've raised them in a way that they know that, there are some things that are inappropriate and they shouldn't be put on social media.
Gracie, I love you, but that's like a punch in the stomach to every parent. Because
Yeah,
the question
yeah.
you're making us wrestle with, and I love, is have we raised kids in such a way that we can trust them? Have we taught them to make decisions that we can trust their decision making? That's really important, yeah.
I partly agree with Gracie on the trust factor, but I think I was recently diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, and in the past couple of months, that's been, I don't know, kind of a thing that we're working on. And like sometimes I really, really wish that my mom was on my Tumblr and could see my Tumblr because it's a really good place to vent. And sometimes when I reblog something, it directly describes what I'm feeling at that moment. And so partly I agree with Gracie that you shouldn't feel the need to like really keep checking your child's Facebook account or whatever. But I think it's also important to, just once in a while, just look up, see, what's going on, and what they're posting, because it's important.
I think that every kid is different, so I think partly what Gracie said is true, but if you take my brother and I, for example, my brother's 2 years younger than me. When I first got my Facebook account, I was stupid with it. I don't think I was mature enough to handle a Facebook account. So my parents did check it, and looking back at that, I do know that that was the right thing to do because my personality on a internet site was just not mature enough to handle that when talking to other people. And so when they did monitor it, and the few times that they did have to say, Samuel, like, this is mean to say to a person, like, take that off, or hey, like, we don't, like, this is wrong, was the right thing to do. But for my younger brother is a lot more, he's different than I am. So my parents treat him differently with what he has because he is different than I am, and because they've raised both of us, they know the personalities of us, so they can make that judgment of, yeah, I do trust him when he goes on Facebook or Twitter. Yeah, I do, like, I know that when what he tweets is going to be God-honoring and it's not going to be disrespectful. So I think when you know your kids, you're going to know if you need to look on their accounts or not. So I think it really depends on who your kid is.
I think it's good for you as parents to be aware. Josh was talking earlier about not necessarily ignoring things, and I'm sure that it'll look different in every household, but I think that if you have no idea what's going on social media, I think that sort of is a red flag. Like, that's not all too good. Like, if your kid is just posting a whole bunch of garbage and you have no idea about it, that's not very healthy. But I think your child should know that you do trust them on social media. Like, it shouldn't be to the point where they don't feel like their Facebook account is their own. It shouldn't be that you feel that your Facebook account is your parents'. But I think that as parents, you definitely do need to be aware, and that if you have no idea what's going on Facebook in your child's life, that's probably not a very good thing. And I think that it is important that that your kids do know that you trust them, but it is also good to be aware.
Yeah, and especially on Facebook, like colleges will actually look at their, like the applicants, they'll look at their Facebook pages. So I think that to a point, like when it comes to all the public information, seeing what they're posting is probably at least a little bit important. Like, I'm not saying it to go through all their personal messages and text messages, and that's just ridiculous. But like when it comes to the public information that anyone and everyone can look at, sometimes like I'll post something occasionally where I'm not thinking like, ooh, my grandmother's gonna read that. So like, it's really important to make sure that you're still making yourself out to be a decent person on the internet, because people can completely change their personalities as soon as they get behind a keyboard.
Which is why, sorry, I'm just gonna speak again. I think like parents should be like friends with their kids on Facebook, because that way you can see what they're posting. But well, you guys are really good at that. That's true. But I mean, if your kids don't block you, you should be friends with them, and so that way you can like see what they're posting. But I don't think that you should be like, kids, give me your username and password so that I can go on and read everything you have. I don't know, I just don't think that's important. However, it is important that you do see what kids are posting. Oh yeah.
I think that if they're blocking you from Facebook, I think that's kind of a signal, because
Red flag.
you know, if they don't want you seeing what they're posting from someone else's, I don't think they want you going into what they have, so I think that would be a red flag. So I definitely think that a great approach to just being aware of what your child is, like who they are online, is be like maybe it's making an account and then befriending them. So if they're blocking you and not letting you be friends with them, then I think then it's time to start checking to see like, well, why are you blocking me? Like, is there something, you know? So I think that just becoming friends with them is a really like great first step.
Cool. Let's talk about music for a minute. Is it true that students listen to music for the beat and don't listen to the words? Is that pretty unanimous? No, that's not true? Okay. Are you concerned so you know the lyrics to the songs, are you concerned about what's being sung about or about what's being elevated as important? Yes, no, why?
Yes, because one of my best friends' younger siblings was, I don't remember what song it was or what, but you know, they just had it stuck in their head or something, and it was not, like, they do not understand what some of the lyrics mean. B, when they figure it out, they're probably going to be embarrassed. It's concerning. I think it's concerning because it's what kids are hearing on the radio, they might bring back to school and be like, hey, this song is awesome. And then their friends go and put it on their iPod and their parents hear it, you know? And it concerns me.
I think that there is, like with the media, like there are some really disgusting songs out there, but at the same time, there's also a lot of great songs that aren't Christian, that have great tunes and like, that are just enjoyable to listen to. So I think, it concerns me with some of the songs that are out there right now that are on like the top 20s maybe, but I really, really enjoy to listen to music. So it really comes down to, it's just how, like, it's what you, like the guidelines that you're gonna set for yourself. So yeah, I'll just be honest, there are a few songs that I won't listen to because of that, just because of my love for music. And I think that we could probably all say that is, music is such a big part of our culture. I mean, they're playing music every period that we're walking in the hallways to class. And you're not gonna hear a Christian song playing in a public school like that, but I definitely think it is alarming of what some of the lyrics are saying, but at the same time, there are some really great songs that you can't just say, we don't want you listening to that because, you know, it has like a swear word in it, because that's what the culture is, and that's what is enjoyable to a lot of the kids.
I think it is concerning in terms of the songs that don't have very wholesome lyrics. Like my dad has a saying, "Garbage in, garbage out." You know, the things that you're putting in your ears, whether you realize it or not, that's gonna manifest itself in the way that you live. And I think Sam does have not all secular music is horrible. I think just as parents, you know, weigh the music as, you know, is this going to be benefiting my child like eternally in their relationship with God, or is this going to be something that's drawing them away? So.
I'm just gonna be honest. I hate so much about modern music. Makes me so upset. But I mean, I'll kind of explain that. The reason why I don't like it so much, I guess the lyrics, they kind of concern me. Like, is that really like what life is about? Strippers and alcohol and stuff like that. But the main reason why it concerns me is because I have a 7-year-old cousin who I babysit a lot, and she and I are really, really similar, and we both love music and we love to sing, and she just, anywhere she goes, like, she'll sing. And she also has Pandora because she, like, on her iPod, and she doesn't know what she's listening to. And one day I heard her singing the song called All I Do Is Win, and some of those lyrics are really inappropriate, and she should not have been listening to that song. And one lyric that she was singing, it was singing about like strippers, and I was like, Libby, do you even know what you're talking about? She's like, no. But she like sings it in public. And so I guess that's kind of like why it concerns me, is because it's a reflection like on her and her parents and like her family and stuff like that.
It sounds like you guys are primarily concerned about people's inability to evaluate the music. Is that right? All right. We'll keep moving because we've got just a few minutes left. I love this next question. What's the most important thing your parents can do for you? I know we talked about, I wish every parent had this and those kinds of things, but if you you have an opportunity now to talk to 100 parents, what's the one most important thing they need to do for their kids?
I think it's just to show love to your children. Like Josh talked about, like girls especially will go and look for love in other places. If they don't get it from like their dad, they'll go and they'll look for it in guys, and it's usually not effective at all. And I definitely think that if your child knows that you love them and you show that you love them and you're interested in like a relationship with them, then it's going to have really good results for both of you. And I just think that that's a really, really important thing, is that your children know that you love them.
I think one of the most important things is to show, it's going back to like looking in the mirror, is showing your kids that you've made your faith your own, and you're not going to church because your parents did, or you're not going to church because you've been doing it for 20 years, but you're going to church for a reason. And you can beat the scripture into your kid's head, and it's going to come out the other side, like the math problems that they learned the previous day. But it's what really sticks out to me is how my parents have said, like, Samuel, we want you to come to church with us, but you know, in 10 years, are you gonna wake up Sunday mornings when you're so tired and go to church? Or are you gonna go to Bible study? Are you gonna make that extra effort when you just don't, like, you wanna go to sleep? Are you gonna go and are you gonna read your Bible? Because we're not gonna be there to say, hey, you know, you need to do this, or hey, like have you been keeping up with your devotions? So I think one of the most important things is modeling how you live out your faith, because no one else is making you, but because you love Jesus Christ.
I agree with what both of them said, and I think additionally, I think just praying for us. You know, the lives that we live as teenagers, there's going to be huge ups and downs, and there are going to be times where it looks hopeless. But I think that just continue to pray for your children, and that God would just bring people into their lives. And you know, we kind of talked a little bit earlier just about having good, solid Christian friendships. You know, those are very important things. Just continually praying for those friendships for your children, and just even when it does look like it's hopeless for them to get back on track, just continue to pray that God would bring them back on track.
I'd say pay attention. You know your kids. I know when my mom knows when I'm upset, even if it's just something little. But just pay attention, because even the littlest thing can be a sign of, your kid being upset or your kid being, normal. Like my mom knows that if I'm quiet or if I barely come out of my room all day, there's probably something wrong. So yeah, just pay attention.
For me, it would be take interest in what they do. Because when you take interest in something that your kid's doing, it shows that you kind of love and accept who they are. And so, like, if you want your kids to want to spend time with you, if you want them to sort of take your advice, like, if you actually show that you accept who they are, and if you give them advice, they're more likely to take it, because they know that you just kind of want to better them as a person, and you're not just trying to make them into someone else.
It's awesome. You guys are awesome. I want to end. We got 3-4 minutes left. I want to do lightning round. Help them excavate your culture a little bit. So with each question, we'll start with Gracie, and we're just going to go down the line. You're only allowed to give a one-phrase answer, sometimes one-word answer. Okay? Are you ready? You don't have to move quick down the line, but we'll go as quickly as we can. Okay? Favorite secular song, and who it's by.
Well.
It's awesome to be the first, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's really
You're
good.
welcome.
Well, lately I've been listening to a lot of 50s music, so probably Dream a Little Dream of Me, Louis Armstrong. Anyone?
And you thought there was no way you'd ever connect with the teenagers. You wasn't a 50s music. Grant.
Do crossover bands count as secular?
Yeah.
Probably Dare You to Move by Switchfoot.
Cool.
I'd say Can't Hold Us by Macklemore.
Caves by Jack's Mannequin.
I can't pick a song, but my favorite artist is Mumford & Sons. So.
All right, cool. By the way, I'd hope you could write these down. These are great things to look up, and you'll get a feel for where your teenagers are at. Favorite TV show?
New Girl.
Parks and Recreation.
No doubt in my mind, Duck Dynasty.
Doctor Who.
Sherlock.
What wasn't the last one?
Sherlock. on
Sherlock.
BBC.
Awesome. Let's do this. Biggest temptation in your life? Should we start with Sam? It's not fair to make you go first, is it? Hopefully Alexis has been thinking. You want me to start on her end?
No.
You're ready. Grace is ready.
Biggest temptation, I guess I kind of struggle with curfew business, I guess, because I don't know, especially with it's musical season, so cast parties, I want to stay there for a really long time, so I guess coming home later than 10:30 is a temptation for me.
I don't necessarily know if I can point to a particular sin or anything like that, but I think just in general, just to conform to the non-Christian friends you have at your school.
I'd definitely agree with Grant. I think the hardest thing is maintaining your witness when you're with the friends that don't have that. And so I think it's really easy to be with, Grant and our other Christian buddies, but it's really hard to uphold your morals and what you believe in when no one else is like that.
I'd say my biggest temptation is not being okay with getting a B in a class.
Perfectionism kind of thing, yeah.
I would say laziness or inaction, for sure.
Cool. All right, last thing we're going to do, still lightning round. You're going to fill in 2 blanks, okay? We'll start with Alexis, just for fun. I respect blank because of blank. The first blank is a person, the second blank is why you respect them.
I respect Josh Peterson because it seems like he sacrifices an awful lot for his ministry.
Your check will be in the mail. Yeah, that's the one I mailed them, what you have to say.
I respect, this is hard. I respect my mom for not giving up when she's going through a really, really tough time, and she's had a lot of those, so.
I respect Tim Tebow because no matter what David Letterman says or what the sports, like all those people are saying, he's not afraid to say, I'm a Christian and I'm not going to have sex till I'm married.
I respect James Schroeder because he really helped pull me back on track.
I respect my brother Samuel, not him.
Thank you.
I just want to clear it up. I respect
You're
Sam.
saying he's not your brother, not that you don't respect him, right?
Yeah. No, I respect Sam, but he's not my brother. I respect my brother Samuel because he's always there for me, and he is honest, and he just tells me like it is, which is probably why I do that too. So.
Guys, I want to thank you so much. I love you. You have given us a gift that most parents don't get, an honest, unfiltered response to the questions that we have. And I know we didn't get to all that you turned in, but I hope the ones we did get to have been beneficial for you.